Little one, are you here to see my Dharma form, or the truth?
Young master, what if I told you that beneath every step you take in Qinghe, a hidden current flows, traces of someone scattered across the land, someone who almost shaped an entire dynasty, yet remained in the shadows. Today, we uncover the story of a Jianghu wanderer, a man of many masks, who once walked before you, Tian Ying. Like many tragedies rooted in the 16 prefectures of Yanyun, Tian Ying's story begins in 938, when the region was ceded to the northern Khitans. With the mountains and valleys, once natural defense lines, lost, it was as though a floodgate had burst open. Raids swept south, plunging the central plains into chaos. Countless families fled toward Qinghe, becoming refugees. Among them were two young brothers, Tian Ying and Qianqi. They were fortunate. A blacksmith took them in, and the brothers grew close to his son. Tian Ying longed for quiet, peaceful days, while the blacksmith's son dreamed of becoming a great Jianghu hero. But peace in Yanyun never lasted. The Khitans surged south once more. This time, the three children were captured by mountain bandits and forced to raid villages and refugee camps. Just when their lives seemed sealed by fate, they were rescued by a white-robed swordsman. When the brothers asked how they could repay him, he simply said, "The Jianghu is vast. If fate wills it, we will meet again." His martial prowess, his righteousness, his quiet humility, these ignited something in Tian Ying. This was the first embodiment of the Jianghu he would forever look up to. Tian Ying no longer wished to drift with fate. He wanted to shape it. First time, he felt that destiny should be chosen, not endured. Much like you, the young master, whose tragedy at the blissful retreat forced you to forge a new identity, Tian Ying's suffering pushed him toward the Jianghu. These early chapters of Tian Ying's life were told to you by the blacksmith's son himself, Yan Da Tia, now living peacefully in Harvestfall village. Not long after, the boys learned that Emperor Chai Rong of the later Zhou dynasty was gathering swordsmen, patriots, and martial artists to reclaim Yanyun. Among the recruits, Tian Ying once again encountered the white-robed swordsman. From this gathering, the 16 heroes were born, forming a righteous cause known as the Hanging Blade. Their refugee camp would later be revered as the Palace of Annals, the heart of their resistance. Within the 16 heroes were several names you often hear in Qinghe: Wei Daoji, master of spies and recruitment; Feng Dao, founder of the Inkbound Order and future prime minister; Chu Qingchuan, Aunt Ham's lover. There was also an orphan boy, timid but loyal, who followed the heroes everywhere. The emperor fondly called him 17. Yes, this is the same lucky 17 you meet later. The loyal child who kept his promise to forge 10,000 swords for the Hanging Blade.
Da Long promised me, after I forged 10,000 swords, he'd come back. I hate you. I hate you. Why did you disturb me?
Inspired by these heroes, the three brothers trained tirelessly. But this was when their differences became clear. No matter how hard Tianqi or the blacksmith's son tried, they could not match even 1/10 of Tian Ying's talent. Eventually, their paths diverged. The blacksmith's son, realizing his limitations, chose to remain in a village granted by Emperor Chai Rong, later known as Harvestfall Village. Many villagers there bear the surname Yan, refugees who adopted the name of their lost homeland. The blacksmith's son himself, who later tells you the stories of their youth, and of the day Tian Ying left the Palace of Annals to follow a caravan north. You might wonder why Tian Ying didn't stay and live peacefully in Harvestfall Village, as he once wished. But Tian Ying understood something you too are beginning to learn. Peace built on unstable land never lasts. Traveling north with a merchant caravan, Tian Ying reached Little Deer Village just as a wedding was taking place. But it was no celebration. The bride was a blind girl, sold into a ghost marriage with a dying man, the village chief's son. During the ceremony, the grooms suddenly fell into madness. Moments later, the entire village followed, driven insane and attacking one another. In the chaos, the chief accidentally killed his own son. Tian Ying fought his way through the frenzied villagers, protecting the blind girl and cutting down those who tried to harm her. The village elders revealed the truth. Only the dear goddess could cure the villagers of a horrifying affliction that drove them mad before turning them to stone. After she vanished, the curse returned. Tian Ying, skeptical of legends but determined to seek the truth, came into a cavern beneath the village, the vast, gleaming abyss. There, they encountered the ghastly zombie-like beings later known as the Dream Puppet Calamity. These creatures were remnants of an ancient Tang-era experiment seeking immortality, an experiment whose methods now echoed the dark practices of the Oriate Pavilion. The villagers, however, refused to believe the truth. Blinded by desperation, they clung to their deity. Unable to save the village, Tian Ying continued north. Before parting, he placed a small knife in the blind girl's hands, a simple tool, but also a symbol, a weapon to defend herself, a chance to choose her own fate. Just as the white-robed swordsman had once given him a chance, just as you, the young master, were given a pat after losing everything. You may wonder why Tian Ying didn't take the girl with him, but his path was dangerous, and he, like the swordsman before him, chose not to drag another innocent into a destiny forged by blood. For Tian Ying had already committed his life to one mission. Until Xiangxun was reclaimed, peace would always be temporary. The chance to leave a lasting mark upon the Zhenhu had finally arrived. While wandering through the northern frontier, Tian Ying uncovered word of the Lost 10 Sages collection, ancient scrolls belonging to Feng Dao, founder of the Inkbound Order sect, and a towering figure in both history and martial culture. The scrolls had long vanished into chaos and folklore, yet Tian Ying managed to recover them alone. This astonishing achievement earned him a place among the Inkbound Order's disciples, but mere scholarship was never Tian Ying's true destination. Those scrolls were only a stepping stone on a path he had already chosen for himself, a path leading northward to reclaim the land stolen from his people.
This Tian Ying is my senior disciple, but many years ago he left our sect. Now, rumors say he's been seen in Qinghe.
Seeing through his calm exterior, Wei Daoji, head of espionage for Emperor Chairong, nominated Tian Ying to join the Hanging Blade. Their mission: unite the heroes of the Jianghu, restore strength to the realm, and one day reclaim Yanyun. Under Chairong, a ruler revered not for power but for wisdom, Tian Ying found what he had long yearned for, a righteous cause worthy of his suffering, his talent, and his unbending resolve. The rise of the Hanging Blade inspired countless patriots to join the cause. However, even power could not solve every problem. After decades of war and chaos, Buddhist temples had spread unchecked across the land. Hundreds of grottos were carved, countless bronze statues cast. People, unable to escape suffering, clung to prayer as their only solace. But there was another issue. To avoid taxes, heavy labor, or army conscription, many able-bodied young men became monks, living off offerings rather than contributing to society.
Hey, young wanderer, when you leave, please don't tell anyone we were late.
The state treasury grew thin, the farmlands lay abandoned. A direct suppression of Buddhism risked civil unrest. This was when Tian Ying revealed a different kind of brilliance. He proposed infiltrating Buddhism from within, to use belief against belief. Thus, he shed the name Tian Ying and entered the monastic world under a new identity, Miaoshan. He claimed to be a disciple of the famed monk Baoji from the northern and southern dynasties. But in Qinghe, he arrived simply as a nameless wanderer in robes. To make his identity credible, he needed a miracle. At high noon, a radiant halo appeared atop a tower, while Miaoshan lectured on Buddhist teachings. The place was soon named Halo Peak. In truth, the Buddha light was merely sunlight refracted by a jade ornament on the tower's summit, a planned illusion to draw attention. The effect was immediate. Followers gathering, whispers spreading. Miaoshan became a monk of renown. While preaching at the Thousand Buddha village, Miaoshan saw people consumed by superstition, willing to kowtow thousands of times for supposed prosperity rather than engage in real labor. The scene reminded him of Little Deer Village, communities drowning in blind faith, unable to awaken. Then came the event that changed everything. The very next day, a meteor fell, striking the village, engulfing it in flames and leading a vast crater. A divine punishment? Or a coincidence? Miaoshan seized the moment. On Halo Peak, he lectured again. The Buddha light appeared. To the people, it was proof. Miaoshan's teachings reflected true Dharma, and blind worship invited disaster. From that day, Miaoshan became the most revered monk in the realm, a masterstroke of statecraft. With popular sentiment shifting, Emperor Chai Rong issued a decree to suppress Buddhism. Panic swept through the monastic community, exactly as planned. Miaoshan then stepped forward as the true Dharma monk, urging the emperor not to wipe out ancient temples that had stood for 1,000 years, while advocating the dismantling of countless newly built, illegitimate temples. Bronze was also scarce for minting currency. Legend says a single bronze coin dropped from a Buddha statue's hand.
The Buddha's hand, there's a coin. Wait, no. It looks more like the model of a coin. A mother coin. I heard that no one dared to act when they proposed destroying Buddha statues to cast coins. But then Master Miaoshan performed a ritual for 7 days, and a mother coin fell from the Buddha's hand. That's how the practice began.
In reality, another calculated move, allowing the state to reclaim copper for currency production. Trade flourished, people's lives improved. Moreover, both the Khitans and southern Tang were devout Buddhist realms. Miaoshan's reputation created the perfect veil for him to infiltrate these territories as a humble pilgrim. Yet inside, conflict brewed. The meteor that wiped out the village, whether fate or coincidence, became a stepping stone for his plan. Miaoshan knew, gods exist only where people place their faith. Still, his purpose remained unshaken. Thanks to the reformed plans of Emperor Chai Rong and Tian Ying, after 4 years of preparation, the later Zhou dynasty finally had enough resources and power to begin a northern campaign aimed at reclaiming the 16 prefectures of Yanyan. The army captured 3 key passes in just 42 days, advancing as if nothing could stop them, fulfilling the Hanging Blade's vow. The Khitans in the north were forced to request military assistance from their southern rivals, the southern Tang. Their plan was to attack Chai Rong's forces from both north and south to halt the campaign. The Khitan king decided to send his uncle as an envoy to the southern Tang, a journey that would take him through Qinghe. For the Hanging Blade, this was a once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity. If the Khitan envoy were killed, the alliance between the Khitans and southern Tang could be shattered. Yet, to maximize its effect, the envoy had to die on southern Tang soil. Ironically, many patriotic Jianghu warriors in Qinghe also knew of the envoy and planned to strike him down locally. Rash actions could ruin the plan. While these martial artists were true patriots, their hot-headedness threatened the bigger picture. There was no time to persuade every sword-wielding patriot to stand down. Some would need to be stopped by force to protect the greater plan. Thus, Tian Ying sought the aid of a famous assassin known as the Lunar Goddess, a blind killer whose sword moved as silently as a moonlit night and as swiftly as the wind. He personally traveled to her hidden lair, prepared for a difficult persuasion. Asking someone to slay many of their own countrymen while protecting an enemy throughout Qinghe was no small request. Such an act would forever taint her reputation as a Jianghu wanderer, leaving her countrymen's blood on her hands. Yet, to Tian Ying's surprise, the Lunar Goddess agreed without hesitation. When asked about payment, he offered her new eyes. At this moment, Tian Ying did not yet realize that the Lunar Goddess was the blind girl he had rescued from a ghost marriage years ago. For her, however, this meeting felt like destiny itself, for the blind can see truth clearer than most. Before departing, there was still much to prepare, for the disappearance of Miaoshan or for the rise of the army if a chance to reclaim the land came. Wanshan, the general who had defended Ding County in the north, was a man of iron resolve. During the second Khitan invasion, his wife and daughter were captured as leverage, yet he did not waver. This earned him the title General Ironheart, safeguarding the people. Eventually, however, Ding County fell under the overwhelming forces. He and his Tiger Fort's army retreated to a small citadel to await reinforcements. Though the wait lasted 13 years, Emperor Chai Rong eventually commanded a northern campaign. Wanshan could scarcely contain his joy. He would finally avenge his family and fulfill his vow to reclaim lost land. But to his shock, the campaign was called off midway. He could not understand why his years of sacrifice were abandoned. The truth, Emperor Chai Rong had fallen gravely ill, and the news could not be shared at the front to maintain the army's morale. Refusing to accept the order, Wanshan resolved that if the cowards at court would not march north, he would force their hand himself. That night, he turned his blade not on the enemy, but on the city he had guarded for 13 years, the people he had vowed to protect. His tiger forts donned Khitan robes and slaughtered the city, using it as a pretext to compel the court to send reinforcements. Ironheart's resolve had turned to coldness and ice. Though this act could not change the past, the weight of guilt pressed upon him. He retreated to Qinghe, where Miaoshan guided him to the Sim Tower at Bodhi Sea, a sanctuary he had built for those seeking repentance. Miaoshan told him, crossing the Bodhi Sea of suffering, one may find a blissful shore. But Wanshan knew the truth. His sea of suffering was too vast, too deep to ever cross. Before departing for the assassination, Miaoshan summoned a jade carver from Mercy Heart down to the Bodhi Sea. Together, they split the Buddhalite jade in two. One half was given to Wanshan as a symbol of hope that the northern expedition might rise again. The other half was entrusted to the Lucky 17, hidden inside the dragon head statue. In this way, the secret of the Buddhalite on Halo Peak would be preserved. Tian Ying had long wished to partner with Chu Qingchuan and master the face-changing technique to infiltrate the enemy. Now, as an assassin, he felt the need more than ever. Unfortunately, the only one who had truly mastered it was the Water Lady, but the technique was her keepsake, and she would never allow her lover, Chu Qingchuan, to alter his face to spy in enemy territory, let alone share it with others. Yet Chu was also part of the Hanging Blade, and the assassination plan desperately required the skill. Unable to persuade her, the Hanging Blade organized a banquet and invited the Water Lady, intending it as a diversion while Tian Ying could sneak into her blissful retreat chamber to steal the technique. But Xiangxun saw through the ruse. With no choice, Chu Qingchuan restrained her, and the two clashed at the peaceful bell tower. Their battle left a massive chunk missing from the giant bell, with countless daggers flying across the tower beams. The incident created a rift between the couple, a quarrel on face-changing that kept them from seeing each other. Knowing Xiangxun's temper, Blissful Retreat would not entertain any Hanging Blade guesses from that day on. Before departing, Chu Qingchuan wrote a letter to Aunt Han, promising to make it up to her when he returned. But with the homeland's fate at risk, there was little room for personal happiness. As expected, the Khitan Envoy passed through Qinghe, only to be intercepted by numerous Zhenghu wanderers. Suddenly, for the second time, the Buddha light appeared atop Halo Peak. As if guided by divine intervention, a swift sword struck from behind. The famed Lunar goddess cut down many patriotic Zhenghu that day, protecting the envoy and ensuring his safe passage. With her aid, the envoy reached Halo Peak, believing himself shielded by the gods. Then Miaoshan appeared, guiding the envoy to the Breeze Post banquet in southern Tang, promising safety upon arrival. He was given a horse, Night Flash's flying light, to carry him swiftly. Between the halo light, the blind swordswoman, and the miraculous horse, the envoy believed his survival to be nothing short of divine providence. Little did he know, it was all part of an elaborate plan. The halo light was crafted by Miaoshan, the lunar goddess served as his protector, and the horse had been borrowed from Finesteed Hamwick by Tian Ying, secured with a generous offer. Every step executed flawlessly, except for the final act, reaching the Breeze Post banquet and ending the envoy's life. At this moment, the lunar goddess offered to accompany Tian Ying into southern Tang to carry out the assassination. Tian Ying hesitated, but she reminded him, if he could not keep his promise, how could a blind girl like her track him and claim her reward? Relenting, Tian Ying agreed to wait 3 days for her. If she failed to arrive, he would proceed alone. The blind swordswoman felt grateful to walk beside him, keeping him safe as he once had for her years ago. Yet fate intervened. Zhenghu swordmen, enraged by her earlier actions, sought revenge. Duty left no time for delay. Tian Ying pressed on alone. Finally, he caught up with the envoy at Breeze Post. That night, a grand banquet was held in the envoy's honor. Khitan and Southern Tang troops feasted and drank, unaware of the deadly trap. At the decisive moment, Tian Ying struck. One smooth stroke, and the envoy's head fell, a blade as fluid as silk. Disappearing into the shadows, Tian Ying left chaos behind. Southern Tang, shocked by this diplomatic disaster, responded with full force. Passes were closed, houses searched, and even banquet attendees were suspected of complicity and tortured. To avoid capture, Tian Ying adapted, disguising himself as a convict and entering a prison labor camp. During this time, he discovered the Southern Tang's Orient Pavilion was using the dream puppet experiment to create a zombie-like army. He sent word to his spy master, Wei Daoji, who, in turn, reached out to someone familiar, Uncle Jian, asking him to come to Southern Tang and assist Tian Ying. This was why Uncle Jian departed 3 years ago. But man proposes, God disposes. The incident at Breeze Post shattered the alliance between the Khitans and Southern Tang. But, to everyone's shock, Emperor Chai Rong, the very soul of the Northern Expedition, fell gravely ill and passed away only 2 months later. Soon after came the Chenqiao Mutiny and the birth of the Song Dynasty. All these earth-shaking changes happened during the 3 short years Tian Ying was hiding in Southern Tang. Tian Ying and Uncle Jiang escaped to Qinghe while still being hunted relentlessly by the Orient Pavilion. 3 years had passed, but the world felt as if it had aged a lifetime. The Hanging Blade was disbanded. The Palace of Annals was raided by the Orient Pavilion. What remained was hatred. The Jiaohu swordsmen who were cut down that night came seeking Tian Ying, demanding vengeance as fiercely as Long Wu once had. And the most heartbreaking of all, the death of the lunar goddess, Li Zhenzhen. Tian Ying had brought her a new pair of eyes, keeping his promise. He waited for her for 3 days, but she had waited for him under the wake for 3 years. Li Zhenzhen's world had always been darkness. Blind and powerless, she was denied even the simplest freedom of living as a human being. Sold for a pouch of coins, she never resisted. Forced to marry a dying man, she said nothing. Even on her wedding day, when knives were pointed at her, she bowed her head and offered her thin neck like a lamb. Until another blade knocked those knives aside. A young man placed a small dagger in her hand. Only then did she realize there was another path. From that moment on, she struggled to live. She fought stray dogs for scraps of food. She used her hands to learn the shape of the world. Days became years, her senses sharpened. Her blade became swift and sure, even as her hands grew scarred and rough. Choosing the path of the sword, she became a renowned assassin of the Jianghu, known for swift, clean kills. Her mystic art, blinding mist, which temporarily robbed others of sight, perhaps came from the moonflower, a flower that bloomed only in the dark, beneath the lake, untouched by sunlight. When her only friend once asked her why she became a swordswoman, she only brushed her fingertips against her blade. Because it's the only thing I'd ever had to survive. Her only friend was Feng Nenchi, a disciple of Mohist Hill and one of the 8 talents of Heidao. He built the flooding mechanism for her hidden refuge under the lake and created special books that the blind could read. He gave her a hand bracer, pleading that she wear it the day she finally put down her sword, because killing for a living was not a righteous path. Yet he was the very one who revealed the blueprint of her hideout's protections to the vengeful Jianghu swordsmen. As a Jianghu hero, he could not accept what the lunar goddess had done. In the Jianghu, blood debt must be answered. She had killed their loved ones to repay Tian Ying's debts, and they had every right to seek revenge. Her only regret was that the moment came too soon, and she could not keep her promise to accompany him any longer. Many who came for revenge fell beneath her blade, but she was grievously wounded, and she knew she would not survive. If nothing else could be saved, at least she could put on the wedding dress. She wasn't marrying anyone. She simply wanted him to know they had finally met again. Because she knew Tian Ying would return for her. Jianghu is vast. If we are destined to meet again. When Tian Ying returned and found the letter she left for him, perhaps only then did he truly understand who the lunar goddess really was. From the torn scraps of another letter, he pieced together the truth that Li Zhenzhen had ripped up his order for her to kill the Jianghu swordsmen. She did it to protect him from being hunted down in their place. Her final wishes were painfully simple. Thank you for the past. Sorry I could not keep our promise. And remember me. Simple, just like how Li Zhenzhen truly was. It is hard to speak of love, for in her lonely life she had never known what it meant to love or be loved. Perhaps Tian Ying was the only person who ever made her feel human. Not a killer, not the lunar goddess, not the villain who slew loyal warriors, but simply a girl who wished to live like anyone else. A girl who could be cared for. A girl who could be loved. But such things were never meant for a blind girl like her. Perhaps that is why she loved the moonflower so dearly. Born in the mud, unnoticed by the world, yet still bowing to the moon and sleeping with the wind. That is why she could only leave this world with a moonflower in her hand, not the new eyes nor the blade that Tian Ying gave her. She cared for the flower as she wished someone had cared for her, something she never had. If there is a next life, she wishes to be a flower. But even a late promise is still a promise. Tian Ying wrote to Uncle Unfaded Tian, actually Aunt Tian, and asked her to help replace Li Zhenzhen's eyes. Only after fulfilling every promise he owed did he finally take his next step. He deliberately spread a rumor of his return. The Buddha Light's third appearance marks Miaoshan's return. A message only those who knew his true identity within the hanging blade would understand. But perhaps he never expected you, the young master, to be the first to catch the signal. Both halves of the Buddha Light jade ended up in your hands, and on that sunny day, destiny stirred again. After witnessing how countless lives and sacrifices had nearly been wasted, what will Tian Ying choose to do? And as for you, the young master, what do you truly seek when you finally stand before him? Is it revenge for the Jianghu heroes who fell because of his schemes? Do you demand he pay for the deception that caused a whole village to be wiped out by a falling meteor? Or do you see what many in Qinghe see, a patriot of the Jianghu? Perhaps you also see pieces of him within the people you know. Yi Dao's instinct to save others, Chu Qinchuan's devotion to duty over happiness, Uncle Jiang's quiet wisdom and patience. But were these truly Tian Ying's qualities, or merely masks? The Jianghu swordsman, the Buddhist monk, the cunning assassin. Which face is the real him? That is the question he reaps for you. As a fledgling wanderer, you are still far from matching his depth. Yet Tian Ying shares something with you, an extraordinary talent for martial arts. Taking on the identity of a false dharma as punishment for the victims of Thousand Buddha Village, you strike Tian Ying with the Buddha palm mystic arts you learned while helping the tormented souls find salvation. The technique works, but he has an answer. The free morph mystic art, a storm of shadowless kicks. Its original Buddhist name means unhindered freedom, the embodiment of Tian Ying's existence. Everything he does comes without hesitation, without doubt. His will is unwavering because he lives for a single purpose, a purpose he accepts he may never witness fulfilled. Right or wrong, he leaves that judgment to later generations. And you, young and full of resolve, feel like the protagonist of your own story. You defeat Tian Ying, crushing the Dharma statue upon him like divine retribution for all his crimes. You swim away as he sinks into the Bodhi Sea of karma. But, young master, are you sure he didn't spread the rumor of his return on purpose, so the right person would be drawn to him? What if he already knew who you were after traveling with Uncle John for so long? What if, in his final moment, he smiled as the statue fell? What if this was simply another mask, another escape, another death he chose? A way to bury both Miaoshan and Tian Ying, so he could continue walking the path he believed in. And one day, along your journey, you might find a key to a hidden room on Halo Peak. Inside, you discover traces of a man who could change his face at will, a man who once infiltrated the Orient Pavilion, a man with a surname Li, as in Li Zhenzhen. So then comes the meaning behind Tian Ying's story. Is it the tale of a villain hidden inside the man some called a Jianghu hero? I don't think so. It is a story searching for an answer to what Xia, chivalry, and righteousness truly are. Does a hero become less righteous because he relies on schemes? Because he sacrifices lives for the greater good? If the lunar goddess killed her own people to repay a debt, does that make her unrighteous? Perhaps there will never be a final answer. Right and wrong in the Jianghu are not so easily measured. For Tian Ying, for 17, for Wanshan, being remembered or praised means little. Even if their dreams never bore fruit, Their vow to reclaim the land and uphold the greater good endures. Placing the well-being of others above themselves is righteousness in its purest form. Let future generations bait their merits and their sins. They did what they believed was right, and they walked their chosen path to the very end. And you, young master, your own path now leads toward Kaifeng, the prosperous capital above, and the dark surge beneath that we will uncover in the next chapter.